What's up?
Not much. I'm rocking the Uncle George ensemble.
Yes, of course.
Bring it out for Star Wars.
That's what we got to do. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff still going on because the Clone Wars series is out now on Disney Plus, the last season of that, which is why I wanted to come out with this last episode now. It's an old one because we put up that poll back in November, but we're finally doing this one. So it's what if Qui-Gon Jinn trained Anakin Skywalker, and this is a big two-parter. We did a back-to-back episode for this one, so it took a lot of time to put these together and back-to-back weeks, but I hope you guys enjoyed it.
You did it. I was just a monkey for hire.
Well, still, you voiced it and everything. This is the voice of Count Dooku himself right here. And Darth Sidious.
Dooku, it's not Dookie.
It's Dooku, you know it's Dooku.
Doug and I were having a fun time with that. Just
yeah.
Yeah, whatever, Count Dookie. It's Dooku, you know it's Dooku. How dare you? I'm a count.
I'm a count. That's the only count in the Star Wars universe that I'm aware of. I'm sure on Wikipedia there's another count somewhere. But yeah, we're going to be going over this fanscription, our thoughts on some of the prequels in general, and we're also going to talk about our favorite prequel character, because there's a couple decent ones, I think, and we'll get into those towards the end of the podcast. So going into this one, a lot of people I know think that Qui-Gon would have saved Anakin from going to the dark side because he was a much wiser Jedi an older Jedi than Obi-Wan was when he was raising Anakin.
So I take it we're just pretending Star Wars didn't happen then? Is that the idea? Like, this is just rewrite...
Yeah, no, this is just starting from the base, and like it would affect the original trilogy, but from here
Gotcha.
they would be sequels instead of the originals. So, yeah, this was fun to put together. More for me, like the interesting angle on this was seeing Qui-Gon's reactions to more of the original plot line that played out in the prequels instead of just completely blowing everything up and changing it. I think the father-son dynamic was a fun thing to explore instead of the more brother dynamic with Obi-Wan and Anakin. And like their scene on Mustafar and everything would be kind of the peak of all that stuff. So it's kind of like this competing fathers thing with Palpatine and Qui-Gon with Anakin and where he turns out. I think, it would have been more interesting if he still went to the dark side. We still get did you like at the end with Padme and the Mr. Freeze homage there?
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
Because I was just like... somebody's a Batman fan.
No, I
definitely. My first thought was.
No, I definitely. I said in the outro of it. It's very Nora Freeze style fate of Padme, but I thought it would be a kind of a more fun idea where that's kind of held directly over his head.
Someday I will free you.
I will free you. Freeze Vader. Actually, we should. Mr. Vader. Oh, let's do that.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
That's gonna be the next.
The Jedi? The Ice Age.
That's our next fanscription. What if Arnold Schwarzenegger played Darth Vader? We're doing it. That's next month. You heard it here first.
If you hand that one to me, I'm gonna kill you.
That's gonna be fun.
It'll be like like Orson Welles doing a voice recording. Now under duress is Mr. Freeze as Darth Vader.
Puts his hand just slowly up on the glass. It'll be perfect. Adam and Evil. We could go all into that at a later date. But anyway, yeah, I just thought it was a fun thing to explore more of the Qui-Gon father-son relationship. So, it kind of speaks for itself because we went along with most of the original plot line. So there's not too many big shifts except, towards the end where I don't have Luke and Leia born. And instead, I introduced the half-brother of Anakin, like Shmi actually had another baby.
I was very curious how this was going to connect to Star Wars, and then I guess it doesn't need to. So
right, not exactly.
But yeah, when we got to it, I'm like,
right. So it's like kind of a Luke-esque character. I almost went with Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels. Have you seen any of that show?
It would be an interesting brother half brother thing fighting. Right. Like I could see that.
Yeah, I think that would still be an interesting family dynamic for them to go through. I almost, like I said, went with Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels, who's the main character on that show, who's kind of like the secondary Jedi who kind of went missing before the whole rebellion really kicked up.
So the last Jedi lied to me.
Right. He's still out there somewhere. There's rumors that they're going to do a sequel series to that show too. So I'm very interested to see. Thrawn's in that show. You might like Star Wars.
I'm now that I've got Disney Plus, I'm thinking of looking it up because Thrawn is in
Yeah,
it.
it's a good show. It is a good show.
Thrawn's like one of my favorite characters in the whole series. So
yeah, I mean he's really a main villain in the last couple seasons of it. So yeah. I think you'd enjoy it. So, that was a big change, I guess, bring Darth Maul back because, he is in the Clone Wars series, which is technically canon. So it's not like I resurrected him, out of nowhere. It's still kind of fitting in with what they did.
I watched Clone Wars. That was a surprise in Solo, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
What? You could tell who had not watched all of Clone Wars because of that. Because it was me and about 100 other people in the theater who were just like, whoa, what?
That was the reaction?
I was like, but he, in
half metal legs, though, Rob.
Stitch him back together. I don't know, but
yeah. Was the reaction really kind of like a holy crap? Wait.
Oh no, absolutely. It was.
Okay.
I never we get accused a lot online, like, you're lying, that didn't happen. I was like, I have never lied about a reaction in a theater, not once.
Right.
And that was definitely the reaction. It was like gasps and then like, whoa, and then there was a lot of confused, like, what, and a lot of like mumbling, like, and I think a lot of the mumbling. Yeah, I think the mumbling was people trying to explain it. Of course, I had Doug next to me, and he knows less about Star Wars than I do, so he was no help. My wife didn't watch Clone Wars; she was on my right, so I'm like, fuck, somebody's explaining this somewhere. I don't know how it connects.
It's in a comic somewhere. How he's brought back in the Clone Wars is still kind of like, yeah. But the fact that he is back and like the characterization they do with him in the series is pretty good.
The needs of the franchise outweigh the needs of the few.
The fans brought him back technically, which is pretty funny. Because now, I mean, you hear about the High Republic and all that stuff. That's a whole nother issue. Or not issue.
How is it an issue?
Not an issue. It's a whole nother era, I should say.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I was
not a
looking
problem.
into it, and I'm like, this actually sounds really cool.
No, it does. It's not a problem whatsoever. It's a whole nother like category of Star Wars.
No, I was looking at like the writers' room and them all talking, and I'm like, alrighty, I do have some apprehensions. It's like, uh-oh. It's like, yeah, like none of us agree, and we all get a voice, and I'm just like,
none of us agree.
Isn't that what got us to this latest?
They're turning into the Galactic Senate.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I'm like, the concept of it, I thought was really cool.
No,
I'm like,
great idea.
That's something. I'm like, I honestly wish they had just done that instead of a new trilogy and just like, let's go back in time, or go the same amount of time in the future. Like, just.
Yeah, they always seem to go back. That's kind of their thing.
I was fine with Luke's story in the trilogy, but everything else was kind of messy, and I'm just like, yeah, when it's all said and done now, I'm just like, yeah, I wish they had done that.
Right, yeah. That's going to be a really fun era to kind of explore because they got a free pass to really do a lot of things that you can't do because everything's tied up in the current stuff.
I like the concept of they're like, and they're like Knights of the Round Table. Yeah. I'm like, oh, so they're not assholes like in the
It's
prequel.
The Golden Age.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, so we get to see the Jedi actually be, good.
Right. They're Texas Rangers, as they say.
This passive military force for hire that they became in the prequels. So
right, it's gonna be fun to see them at their height and doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm really looking forward to some of that stuff, and they have a lot of stuff for different age groups. They're gonna have kids-related books, teen-related books, adult books, a lot of different things going on there.
Nice.
So
the little Jedi that could.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that, I'm sure. So talking about the prequels in general, I was very young when these came out. 1999, so I was, I guess, 10 because it came out in May of 99, right? So, I mean, I'm a kid. I love Star Wars. I grew up with the original trilogy on one VHS tape, just watching it and fast forwarding through the commercials and all that
Did you
stuff.
have all three on one VHS?
Yeah, all three were recorded.
That must have been shit quality.
It was not. It was a VHS. It was recorded
off
TV.
I remember VHS, but if you were able to fit all three on one tape, you had to switch the...
It was a cousin of mine.
For all you really young kids out there watching this, you had to like flip a switch basically on the tape when you recorded it.
Yep.
And the more you flip that switch, basically, you could fit more material onto the tape.
Yeah.
But it also lowered the quality. So because we did this, we would record Mystery Science Theaters because we didn't have cable for a while. So we recorded at my grandparents' place when we would visit in Chicago. And so if you had one 2-hour movie, it was good on VHS. It was I mean, good quality for the time. But if you put all three movies on, you would notice like a huge drop in quality. It would be like going from DVD to VHS. It would be that style of drop of quality.
Yeah, it was.
You poor thing.
Right. I mean, that's how I was exposed to it. I mean, sometimes it was on TV, but mostly it was just on that one VHS tape. All three movies.
With the original lines without Greedo shooting first.
Yeah, it was all the original stuff. There was no Jabba scene. A New Hope.
What's my least favorite? The... Han saying, "It's all right, I can see a lot better now."
Yeah.
So his original line, which was "Trust me," which is still one of the greatest lines ever in the trilogy, because after all they went through, it's just such a kind of like, yeah, trust me. Right. Like, I loved that line, and they changed it.
Yeah, I mean, there was all the original
stuff. It was in the Sarlacc pit, basically. Right. Was supposed to say that.
So, yeah, like an older cousin of mine recorded it all, and we got it from him, and I just watched it all the time. So I did see the original trilogy first. That's what I grew up on. And then when the new ones came out, the special editions were in theaters, so I went to see those in theaters as well. And as a kid, you don't really tell the difference. It's like, oh, there's a dinosaur butt in the background, and that's cool, I guess.
Oh, I noticed the difference.
Right. I mean, as a kid,
honestly,
it's like,
there were a number of things, like the special edition, there were a number of things I liked in it.
Yeah.
There's a number of things I still like in it.
Sure.
And there are a number of things I didn't like. I've grown to hate them more and more with the more changes he just kept freaking making. Like, at some point, I'm like, okay, you did your special edition. Stop. Unless you're going to make the scene you already fixed look better.
Right.
But he did that once with the Jabba scene, and it still looks like shit.
They've changed it twice since then, too, and it still doesn't look good.
The last one I saw was on like a Blu-ray release, and I'm like, it still looks like shit.
No, I agree.
Not as bad as the original, but I'm just like, ugh.
This is when he steps on his tail, like Han steps on his tail, and it
And Han's like,
oh, it looks awful.
And it looks like somebody just like did a cheap animatic where they just grabbed a Solo like with their little cursor and lifted him up and then just dropped him.
Yeah.
Like it looks like the cheapest animation.
Mm-hmm. That scene did not age well at all.
No.
But anyway, I saw those in theaters when the special editions came out. But I mean, the big event was the prequels. This is new material coming out. I remember being very excited, and I remember liking
the innocence.
Right, I know. I remember liking the first one enough when I first saw it. I still think the last half hour, for the most part, like the lightsaber fight, holds up really well. In episode 1.
Like little boy Anakin blowing up everything by mistake?
No, just the lightsaber fight.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. There's so many other things going on with that movie that I thought was one of the least offensive things. I'm like honestly, when it's all said and done,
let's try spinning. That's a good trick.
Like that didn't bother me quite as much. I was like, there's so many other like crazy Anakin scenes where I'm just like, like whatever. Well, the other thing is I'm like, and this is why that movie still holds up more than Attack of the Clones is. I felt Phantom Menace, like, at least if you're a kid, what kid couldn't identify with that and be like, that's awesome, flying in a spaceship and accidentally... Like, I think if you're 5 years old, and that, I think, was part of the target audience. I don't know what 5-year-old wants to sit through the Galactic Senate talking about votes of no confidence, but...
That's where it's like,
But I'm like, at least if I'm like a kid, I'm like, well, that would interest the kids at least.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Jar Jar thing didn't bother me too much when I was a kid. I mean, like I said, I was 10 years old when I first saw that movie, so I enjoyed it enough, and I remember liking Qui Gonn quite a bit back then. I just liked, it's like Liam Neeson. It's like, of course, and like the more time has gone by, the more I think I appreciate that character. He didn't get to do as much as the others in the prequel trilogy, obviously, but
I think it's because they killed him off, but I never really latched on to him.
He was kind
of bland to me.
He is a little bland in some scenes.
And it's not Liam Neeson's fault.
No, it's the writing. It's all the writing in these prequel movies for sure. But yeah, I mean, there was enough for me to attach onto that I really enjoyed. I mean, I remember still thinking like, well, I still like Luke and everything better than this, but still, this is okay, I guess. So
this is a thing that happened.
This is fine. I still liked it. I was a kid. I enjoyed it. But when Attack of the Clones came out, now I remember this very specifically because this was like around the same week or like weeks removed from the first Raimi Spider-Man coming out. And I was nuts about that first Raimi Spider-Man movie. I
like that movie too.
Yeah, that was one of my
We're going to have many discussions about that because we're in Spider Month. And I will point out the numerous flaws in that film, but also defend that film with my life.
For sure.
Because Doug's just like, no, it sucks. And I'm like,
it doesn't suck.
Go to hell.
No, that movie does not suck. I think a lot of it holds up. A lot of it's very cheesy and campy, but a lot of it really holds up.
He's grown to appreciate. So the thing is, he used to just say it sucks, and now he's grown to appreciate it. Watching it recently, I'm like, So I don't know, but
yeah, I mean that was sort of a big event though. That was one of the first movies I went to go see like by myself with a couple friends and everything.
He came around a bit on the prequels a little bit too.
Oh, he did.
He's like, well, at least it is a unified vision.
Well, of
really
course.
Great, but,
no, that's what I think a lot of people are saying.
I don't think he would have given it even that back in the day. So because I was the one defending Phantom Menace more than he ever was. I went through literally the People versus George Lucas, or I think that was the film that talked about the stages of denial.
The documentary.
I went through all those stages.
Yeah. It's like, it's great. What are you talking about?
Yeah. No, I didn't say that.
The effects are fantastic. The pod racing scene.
Yeah.
The pod racing scene.
I didn't say it was great, but I was defending it way more than Doug was, and literally I saw it a second time in the theater. I think I saw that one, maybe it was twice. Yeah, it was twice. Saw it the second time, and I'm just like, shit. Because I was like, that's when it was started. The novelty had faded away, and then when I saw it before Attack of the Clones came out, when it came to like DVD, I'm just like,
I still think there's enough in there that it's like I could still watch it for the most part and not be, bored out of my mind. There's a couple scenes that are oh boy.
I can sit through it.
Right, but getting back to Attack of the Clones, so like I said, that came out right when the Raimi Spider-Man movie was coming out, that same May of 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing that first Spider-Man movie and loving it. I think I saw episode 2 after Spider-Man, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I even as a 13-year-old or whatever, it gets worse as time goes on. Attack of the Clones is one of the worst big budget movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's awful.
It's terrible.
It's really awful.
Yes.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, people like to say, well, it gave us the Clone Wars at least. I'm like, cool. So you need an entire other show to explain why this movie it justify its existence. It's hands down the worst Star Wars movie in the trilogy. I will rank it. I hate Rise of Skywalker, and I still say Attack of the Clones is worse.
From the acting, the writing, I mean, actors couldn't really do too much about that. But, I mean, the writing is so bad with Anakin and Padme.
It's a slog.
Right.
I still find, Phantom Menace, I still actually...
There's a fondness for me. There's a nostalgia for Phantom Menace.
Again, it feels like there's enough scenes aimed at kids where I'm like, you know what? The big difference is I always say there is a joy to Phantom Menace. Whether it's good or not, or the acting's good or all this, there is, for all of the boring scenes, that there's still a joy to it that I feel like I can relate to that movie on a 5-year-old's level of just like, ooh, pod races, ooh, there's a whiz-bang kind of, Attack of the Clones, I'm like, I don't know what kid sits through that movie just completely going like, this is amazing.
Anakin is
so uninteresting.
Especially nowadays. Anakin is the creepiest male lead in a love story I have seen in a major movie that I have in memory.
It's what happens when you have this old guy trying to write a teenage love story when he doesn't even know how to direct actors or write dialogue.
No, all of their interactions are really bad. I mean, Natalie Portman's a great actress. Hayden Christensen, I've heard, is pretty good in other things.
Fucking movie swore me off of Natalie Portman for a good long while.
I think she said the directors wouldn't work with her after that a lot. She had to really fight for roles and everything.
And I will say this, Natalie Portman for me is still a mixed bag because I have seen what I would call paycheck movies where I'm like, she did this for the paycheck. And I just can't. She's just so flat and boring, but she's proven herself in other movies, though, that she can really, really, really act.
No, I think Natalie Portman's a great talent. I mean, it's just, she didn't have much to work with. I think that Ewan McGregor kind of makes that material a little bit more elevated because he's
the only one I think who gets it. The British actors generally are the only ones who get away with it.
Right. He has kind of this dignity that can carry that more kind of ridiculous dialogue in some scenes.
Same with Christopher Lee, even though he's called Dooku. You're right. He, I think, sells it. Ian McDiarmid sells it, as always. But the Brits, that's about it.
Right. I remember the first time I saw it, the only thing that I liked about it was the Yoda fight, because on a superficial level, it's like Yoda gets to fight with a lightsaber. Really cool. So as I've gotten older, it's like, that's a little excessive and kind of weird to see him jump around.
It's not the same Yoda that was teaching Luke on Dagobah. That's for damn sure.
Well,
this is a Yoda that I'm just like, God, he seems like such a fucking show-off. I really thought this would be all mind-bending, kind of throwing mountains at each other, and instead he's flying around like a freaking pinball machine. I'm like, why would Yoda need a lightsaber even? I forget he'd be so beyond it.
That's a point that a lot of people have brought up. I do love the line that Dooku delivers, it looks like we can't fight each other with our knowledge of the Force. It looks like we're going to have to decide this contest by our skills with a lightsaber.
That would be...
It's
flimsy pretext this is.
I mean, you would just bring out the lightsaber. You wouldn't be like, it looks like we can't decide it this way. Time to bring out the old laser sword.
What kills me is Darth Vader attacked Luke using Force telekinesis with his lightsaber in hand. He was using the lightsaber to point it. They couldn't even do that?
No.
Lame.
Not at all.
No,
there's no lightsaber throwing or anything either.
Attack of the Clones was a super weird one because... my argument at the time, poor naive 20-something that I was. It's like, what year did the movie come out?
2002.
2002, so I've been 23. My thought at the time was, so I would have saw Phantom Menace, I was about maybe 19, somewhere in there. And I thought, you know what, well, this is, he's getting his sea legs back. And that one maybe was aimed more at kids, and, it's...
Getting his sea legs.
I'm like...
He hasn't directed anything in years.
Yeah, I'm like,
right.
this'll be the test. Maybe this one will be better. And I just remember the sheer disappointment. And I left that film, and I'm like, if he directs the third one, we're fucked.
Well, he did.
I'm like, this was a huge mistake to have him direct. And I like, it was soul-crushing sitting through, because I thought, well, maybe that was the aberration.
No, that was kind of the confirmation. No. So regardless, I mean, since I first saw it, I've never liked Attack of the Clones. Now, Revenge of the Sith, I remember seeing that for the first time. That was 2005, so I was 16, I guess. So I was in high school at that point, so my taste had been a little bit refined, going through high school and everything. And I remember seeing that and being so like, did I like that or not? When I first saw it, I mean, there was a lot that I really hated, like the dialogue with Anakin and Padme. No, I'm so in love with you.
But Anakin, then love has blinded you.
And then he goes like,
no, man,
no.
He comes off like one of those like husbands that really just never grew out of the boyfriend phase. Like, no, babe, I got this.
Yeah,
like it's just, it was so bad.
But there is a lot to like, I think, in Revenge of the Sith. While that last lightsaber fight is completely excessive, at least it's a visual, seeing in theaters was a visual kind of feat to see that. And we always, this is what this was all leading to. How did Darth Vader become Darth Vader? So we finally got to see it in Episode 3. It's almost like we only needed one movie instead of an entire trilogy.
Outside of some scenes in Phantom Menace, which are shot pretty well, I also thought it was, on a cinematic level, the best looking of the films. Even though there's a lot of CGI, I like a lot of the cinematography. I like the shots. I like that there are moments where Lucas actually slows down and takes his time. Something Rise of Skywalker could have learned.
Right.
So it's the best. I think it's the best looking film. It's the most cinematic.
Right.
There's actual drama in it.
Again, Ewan McGregor sells it. That scene at the end is one of the best scenes, I think, in the whole saga. Is him, like yelling at Anakin at the end.
But I think my reaction was this. I was like, well, I think it's the best of that series.
A lot of people think that, yeah.
But, and I'm like, and it's clearly not the worst the way Attack of the Clones is, but it was in some ways the most disappointing because of how close it felt that, like, this could have been something good.
Right. No,
and
I
not
agree.
just barely passable, which is what it is. But I'm like, you could see there where there was like this story that could have been amazing. It's like, when he turns, I'm just like, God, if a different director had this in a different script, this scene where he flips could have been awesome.
I thought his motivation, exactly. I thought his motivations and everything for that were so weak, and how just the execution of it is so bad. It's like, this is how Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader. Like this, that's it. I thought it was going to be this big turn where you kind of see his point of view on it, but it's like, I don't really see his point of view on it.
This is the weird thing we forget about the prequels, because they've been so trashed by Red Letter Media and by pretty much everybody, and now there's this pushback to try to reclaim them as like, no, guys, like, really, like,
I know.
It's
well,
good,
a lot of the kids who grew up with it, my age and younger, who love it and are defending it now.
Well, you know what? At some point, you gotta grow up. Like, I'm sorry, there's tons of things.
I mean, what do we do for a living, though? Right?
Okay, I know, but that's the thing. I don't look at things I watched in the '80s, all of them, and say, oh, well, this was really great. There's a ton of things I'm like, they're garbage, and I admit that. Do I still like it? Sure. I mean, there's tons of trash I love. I'm like, I grew up with this. This is amazing. Like, it's got these weird, quirky moments in it, and like, but I don't sit here and go like, well, no, it's legitimately a great movie. That's the arguments I'm starting to see where I'm like losing it. Like, no, it's not. I get you grew up with it, kids, but it's like at some point you gotta like, as an adult, be like, okay, this stood the test of time and is legit good. It's legit great. And like, you know what? I like this as a kid. I have a total nostalgic attachment for it, but it's not good. Right. I just like it. Like the tribalism in the internet has created this world where it's like, well, if you don't like what I like, therefore, it's like the Sith. You're against me or something.
Yeah, right.
It's like, no, you can like it. I'm not saying you can't like it, but I'm just saying it's not good.
Yeah.
You can like something that's not good. I love tons of things that are not good.
Right.
Like we review trash all the time, and some of it I love. So, but the thing about the prequels is, because of how much they were trashed, we forget, like, it's like the concept of the prequels themselves. People are like, oh yeah, it's like so stupid stuff. if you explained the actual story, just the bare bones of it, like okay, let's explain the story. Okay, so what happens in the prequels? Well, there's 2 Jedi that find a small boy who lives in total abject poverty, and he's a slave, but the Jedi have rules that they can't interfere. They're justices of the peace or whatever, so they're able to, with the mother's blessing, take this boy away where he is removed from his home and basically train him because it seems like he's got all these force powers. He then, at the same time, there's this plot to basically create the Empire from within. There's like some Sith Lord that's like pulling the strings behind everything. The kid then falls in love, which goes against all this Jedi training that he's been spending years to do, but he has trouble keeping his emotions in check, finds out his mother is killed, and then basically succumbs to his rage. The woman he's in love with is hoping that this is a one-time event and is willing to like overlook it, like, well, he's a Jedi after all, like he's got to, he's trained in this and that, but in falling in love, that puts him at odds with the Jedi. He sees this woman as another mother figure who he just lost. In the middle of all of this, then this guy comes along who's pulling the strings all the way. We find out that there may be corruption within the whole system. The woman he just loved, thinks she's going to die. This guy who's been manipulating everything says, no, I can save her. This is his last attachment. It's not only the woman he's in love with, it's also a mother figure. He eventually turns in a way that's like, you start describing this plot, it kind of sounds amazing. Like, well, this would be awesome. It's all in the execution where this like completely falls apart. It's like the bare bones of the story is actually really good. That's the tragedy of this. It's like, it's not really that terrible. It's like you just go with just the bare bones of the story, just like, no, it's actually a really good idea. And then you hand it to Lucas to write the dialogue and direct it, and it's like, wow, this is garbage.
Yeah, it's just, he hadn't directed a movie since the first Star Wars movie, right? Before Episode 1.
And I would argue that there's a number of things that are well directed in that movie. I think he sets up his shots nice. I think he knows the technicals.
A New Hope, or
when it comes
later
to
was called
acting, he's abysmal. And when it comes to the actual dialogue, it's abysmal.
Well,
we forget that because it's so well edited. His creative team
his
saved
wife
it
and all that
from him.
Yeah, 100%. The pacing and everything is due to the editing, and the excitement of that Death Star run at the end is all in the editing and the effects as well.
His whole creative team helped him. That was the genius of Lucas before he got full of himself, was that he knew how to surround, like, he eventually listened. He went to minds like Brian De Palma and Ford Coppola, and they all thought this was trash, but they helped him anyway. And all of these people together helped craft a film with his vision. Like, it's still his vision, but so doing it all by himself, though, like, we forget the best Star Wars film was the one not directed by him. It was Irving Kershner, who did Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%. Yeah, it is a frustrating situation when you look back on it that way.
But it's a decent story, and I always thought his story is his best part, where he's like, oh, I have a story idea. Because here's the thing. You don't need midichlorians.
So that's basically Indiana Jones, right? I mean, like the story that he kind of had, and then Steven Spielberg took it and directed it. So it's kind of like, that's like prime Lucas.
He's an ideas guy. He comes up with ideas. Like, we look at the things that people hate about the prequels. There's things like, oh, the midichlorians. I hate the midichlorians. The funny thing is, had he had a creative team around him, I am convinced it would have been like, this is lame. Just cut this, because there's nothing about the midichlorians that you need to tell that story successfully.
No, you're right, yeah. Oh, I guess they say that, Palpatine manipulated the midichlorians to create Anakin or something.
Why do you need midichlorians for that? No. You can't just say the Force.
The Force, yeah. Keep it more
all
mystic.
These details, like, he became so obsessed with these details that, it becomes the hobgoblin of his little mind,
Right. No, I remember. I know what you mean. So, like I said, seeing this movie for the first time, coming out of it and everything, it took me a while to really process it. And even when I watch it now, it's still kind of like, do I like this enough to say I like it? I mean, I don't think so. I think it's still kind of in the lower tier of the Star Wars movies for me, even including most of the sequel trilogy. So I'm up and down on it. But I will say, I binge watched the entire Clone Wars series as research before I wrote this to see if there's any more Qui-Gon stuff or just to incorporate some ideas. And the Clone Wars series absolutely improves Revenge of the Sith because it takes place in between 2 and 3, and there's so much more character build-up. Motivations actually makes much more sense with Anakin. Anakin is great in the series.
And you know what? I hate that. I hate that so much because
it's not like the original plan. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, why? But that's the thing. Why didn't you just make 2 good movies that did what the Clone Wars did? This is the argument they're trying to do with Rise of Skywalker. Now it's like, you don't understand. It's all
in the comics.
It's all explained. It's here if you read the novelization, and it's like there's answers for everything. Like you came up with this after the fact,
right?
And I'm not saying like. I'm very glad Clone Wars is good.
It's great,
and I'm very glad that it improves Revenge of the Sith. But the concept that you need another show to make this bad movie work, and improve it, like it's just so ass backwards. I'm like, you could have just cut out Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and just made 2 good movies that probably could have covered some of what Clone Wars did.
Oh, for sure. Clone Wars is great not just because it expands on the character motivations in terms of the characters that we know from the trilogy, but it introduces new characters, a lot of new storylines and everything that are really interesting, really well done, well executed storylines and characters and themes are very strong in that. The clones have their own personalities, and you get attached to the clones and everything. So I can't recommend it enough as a Star Wars fan. I think you'd really like that in Rebels. I really think you should check those shows out.
But if we get attached to the clones, then we'll feel sorry when stormtroopers die in the next trilogy.
I mean, I don't know. I've heard stormtroopers are a mix of clones and recruits by then. So I think they're both. They're mixed.
The weirdest thing for me is growing up before you did. Like I read Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire.
People have been talking about that a lot recently.
And I know people are like, well, they should have just made that a movie.
Right.
I'm like, at this stage in the game, how? Luke would have been so old. Like, I'm like, no, because his book was, I think it was only like 6 years after Jedi. It's basically set, I think, at the same time Mandalorian set. So I'm like, there was no way. But
just get Sebastian Stan to play Luke.
we heard these lines, during the Clone Wars and this and that, and like. I remember in the 90s, like mid-90s or whatever, early 90s, like reading those books, and they had a clone of like a dark Jedi in it. And for some reason, I got it into my head, because we didn't know anything, and I wasn't really a part of the fandom. Like, I wasn't online. Like, we didn't get AOL till 96.
I remember keyword Star Wars.
Yeah, I remember thinking, oh, is this what the Clone Wars was? This concept that almost like... you'd have clones of Jedi or something, and maybe they were dark Jedi versus like, or something like. I thought that was such an awesome idea that when we finally got around to this Clone Wars, it's just a bunch of stormtroopers based off of Jango Fett. I'm just like, oh. Like, I was really unimpressed, and it's my hang up. I can't get over, and it's
I get it,
and it's a weakness. It's a weakness for me.
The premise alone from the beginning, yes, is kind of weak when you think of it that way. But like I said, if you watch the Clone Wars, if you give it a few episodes to really get into it, and
I'm sure
stuff
it's good.
They go over,
I'm just saying, and that's something where I'm like, that's my problem.
Sure.
Like that's not. I'm not saying that. Well, you must dislike Clone Wars because of that. Or the concept of the clones. I'm just saying that's always been my one hang up. That's dogged me throughout all this. I'm like, yeah, I just kind of thought the clones would be cooler somehow. I thought there were more interesting ideas. Like
right.
But yeah, I've heard the show is good. I'm not knocking the show.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it for sure. That and Star Wars Rebels. Anything Dave Filoni that has done worked on. And he's had a big part of doing The Mandalorian as well, along with Jon Favreau. So. He's got his hand in a lot of different pots in Star Wars. So
if they just hold the course on Mandalorian, that's been my favorite new Star Wars thing in like forever. So.
I know, me too. But yeah, I mean, even if you guys haven't seen the Clone Wars, if you're always kind of like, I don't know, it looks like a little kid show, and it has elements of that. It's definitely still, it was Disney or whatever it was on, a Cartoon Network, I think.
Did it get
original run?
Better or darker or something?
Yeah, no. As it goes along, it does get darker.
Because like I saw a few early episodes, and it wasn't really grabbing me. And then like the movie had like
the movie's not good.
So I remember some Jedi running around and like, all right, Sky Guy, and I'm like, what the hell
Ahsoka gets amazing though.
But that's what I'm saying.
When she
like,
starts off, she's not great.
That sadly was my introduction, which is why people are like, how could you have not seen all of? I'm like, that's where I started, and I was not 10.
Right.
So
It's
like
not-
that was my introduction. So
the
I'm like,
movie's
if it
not
gets
good.
better,
The movie is not good.
yeah,
A
if
couple
it
of
gets
their
better,
episodes,
awesome. Like, but
yes,
yeah.
Ahsoka turns into one of the best Star Wars characters.
That's
period.
what I've heard, and I'm like,
Captain
I remember
Rex,
thinking,
a
I'm
clone,
like, is that the
great
one
character.
from the movie that was annoying me? I'm like, all right, like
Let's-
that's why I'm like, I gotta see this show at some point
Right.
because I'm like, they must have done a turnaround.
Right. From here, let's go into a little bit of our thoughts on our favorite prequel characters. So I'll include the Clone Wars in this, the series and everything.
That's not gonna help me, but
Yeah, I know. For me, I
you
could talk
can go
about
with
it.
you then.
So for you, were you a Dooku fan? I know the name you didn't like, but I mean, we all like Christopher Lee. Jim, I know, really likes Count Dooku. What were your thoughts on him? Is he one of your favorites?
Cut the name and yeah, but I mean it's a low bar. I don't like what they did with him. I was hoping for more.
Right.
I thought the most interesting thing is the plot they didn't do. He's got Obi-Wan sitting there floating, and Obi-Wan's like, "Merp," like just going in circles. I wanted like Dooku to like walk around him like, how's it going there? Getting dizzy.
Don't fall down.
He has this line where he's like, "What if I were to tell you there was a plot within the Jedi to,
I like that scene. Yeah.
I thought for a split second in my naive fucking little mind, I'm like, this would be amazing if Dooku is actually secretly a good guy, realizing that there's elements of the Jedi that are corrupt, that there's a Sith Lord in there,
Right.
and that he's not actually working for the Sith, or maybe he's playing Darth Sidious, going like, uh-oh. I was like, that would have been amazing. And then what a tragedy it would be if Obi-Wan just doesn't see it because of his blind faith in
he
Jedi
kills him.
and kills him.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
None of that
That would have been a
happened.
great idea. I was always confused by that because it seems like they were setting up for something with Dooku, and then at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, he just dies. Like, oh, he's a bad guy all along. I was like, I thought there was something a little bit deeper going on there, but
I thought for a split second, I'm like, if Lucas does that, he's a genius. Like, maybe this will set the series back into, and I'm like, no, none of that happened. It was just lame. Like, nope, I'm the bad guy. But my problem with Dooku is that Christopher Lee has such a presence.
Yeah.
And the movie did its best to just try to make you forget that. There's just silly scenes.
skills with the lights.
There's that. I lose my shit. Like Doug and I saw Attack of the Clones with a friend of his who was visiting in town. We saw it a second time, and no one was there because it had been running for weeks and weeks. Mm-hmm. And so we're like the only one. We're like, maybe there's a handful of people, and we're like, well, then we don't care if we get kicked out. When he's on that fucking speeder, it was like I lost my shit, and as he like speeds by, I just went wee. Like it just looks so silly. Like it's like Lucas had this obsession with taking these dignified characters like Yoda and just putting them in silly situations.
Right.
But I mean, I love Christopher Lee.
Sure.
I mean, he was
doesn't?
he was in Star Wars and Lord of the Rings at the same time. Who does that?
I know. Christopher Lee.
But he also has the most interesting story. Have you ever heard the story about how when he does his death scene in Return of the King?
Oh, that stab back thing?
Yeah.
You told me about this.
Yeah, Peter Jackson basically is like, all right, what I want you to do, you're going to get stabbed in the back, and then you're going to shout, ah, and then you're going to fall over. And, like, he turns to, like, Peter Jackson. He's like, have you ever heard a man get stabbed in the back, Mr. Jackson? And he's like, well, no, I haven't. Well, let me tell you something. They don't go, arg. They just gasp for air. And Peter Jackson's like, it then occurred to me that he worked in the like Secret Service or whatever for the Brits in World War II and had probably stabbed a guy in the back. I'm like, this guy is amazing. I'm like, I just love Christopher Lee to death. So he was up there. I wish I knew more about him, and I'm sure Clone Wars fixes this, but General Grievous, he was so odd. But I'm like, I kind of just enjoy this guy because he's a character, at least.
No, yeah, he's more of the Saturday morning cartoon bad guy.
The way he runs around with General Kenobi.
Yeah, I know. General Kenobi.
He was one of those where I'm like, he wasn't Jar Jar annoying, at least. I'm like, well, he's kind of goofy, but I just kind of love just what a weird character this is. Mm-hmm. I mean, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's all Ewan McGregor, man.
He's really good. But if you want my hands down favorite character in the whole trilogy, it's Palpatine.
Palpatine.
Okay. But here's the thing. Not...
The Jedi are taking over.
No, that was pretty funny. Not once he transforms into the Emperor.
Once his face puffs out and it's the weirdest makeup.
I hate the makeup.
Yeah.
I can't stand his performance. I think it's terrible. Now, I get the argument people make that it's like, well, he's going for camp because he realizes that's the only thing that's going to save this movie, so he's completely over the top. But as somebody who loves Return of the Jedi, I can't stand it because it's like he was so much more... He's campy in Jedi, but he's also much more restrained there.
Yeah.
But him as the senator...
As Palpatine.
And then as the Chancellor, I could watch his performance all day. I could watch him talking to Anakin. I could watch it like I love that stupid little scene at the end of Phantom Menace. We'll be watching your career with great interest. He just kills me. I'm like, he's the only thing that makes those movies a joy to watch. Even in Attack of the Clones, I love democracy more than anyone.
I love democracy.
It's so great.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's a good choice.
I think those probably.
That's a good choice for sure.
And of course, Jar Jar.
Yeah. Number 1, Jar Jar Binks. He's not better in the Clone Wars series, by the way. So, just a forewarning if you ever get into that. Yeah, for me, Qui-Gon is always one that I go back to. I don't know if he's my absolute favorite, but just because, what we know about Liam Neeson now is this action star, over 60. It's like he could still kind of pull that off nowadays, I think. I think he was great. I mean, and just in terms of the character archetype, he is a little dull in some things because he's not supposed to have emotion. He's kind of the prototypical Jedi, even more than the Jedi in the movie, because he's trying to be one with the Force, trying to be like a monk-type character.
Right.
So I really enjoyed his take on it, and where they could have gone with him. If they would have brought him back as a Force Ghost or something, as the first Force Ghost, if we would have actually seen him in Revenge of the Sith, I thought that would have been really cool. But
Qui-Gon I have seen. See him,
your
you will
old
not.
master. So they do go over that in the Clone Wars, and Liam Neeson does come back to voice the character. So
that's awesome.
I think that you'll enjoy
all things that should fucking happen in the series.
No, I agree 100%.
No. I wonder, what? This would be an interesting experiment. I'd have to watch all of Clone Wars, though. But I'm wondering if you could cut Clone Wars together with just the best bits to make 2 movies that would just substitute Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
I don't know. That's one of the benefits of the Clone Wars series is you have so much time to really delve in. I mean, it's told in arc. It's very serialized. So it's like 3 episodes tell one story, 4 episodes tell another story, and it jumps around.
I wonder if you could stick to things that would affect Sith.
Yeah.
In such a way where you could create 2 movies. It would be an interesting experiment for some film student to do.
An editing experiment. That would be fun to go over. But yeah, Qui-Gon is up there for me. I mean, you can't not like Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. I think he's the most likable character in those prequels. Even in the first one where he's just so snippy and so sassy the entire time.
I kind of actually don't like him in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous with Attack of the Clones. I'm like, this is way better.
Yeah, right. He was younger. He was more cocky, I think, in Phantom Menace. But I still enjoyed him.
His opening lines, honestly, I started to think maybe this movie won't be so bad. And then Anakin replies to him, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, right. I've been thinking about her for years. You're just as beautiful as you were in my dream. That's the first thing you say to someone you haven't seen in 10 years.
The best riff tracks line ever in Attack. They've got a great line in Attack of the Clones where it's like Obi-Wan and Anakin's first lines in that elevator, and Anakin replies very dryly, "Yes, master," and Obi-Wan just looks at him and then turns back, and the guy said, "Oh, so that's the performance we're gonna go with? Okay, for the rest of the movie."
That's awesome. So Obi-Wan, a likable character throughout. I think his best performance is in Revenge of the Sith, so he just got better, I think, as it went along. And that's why I'm excited for the series on Disney Plus with him, because you're exploring this sort of time period where not a lot is known. Is he doubting himself? I think he's probably having nightmares about killing his best friend and then finding out that he's alive, maybe. A lot of really fun drama I think you could really get into with him there. And Ewan McGregor is totally down for it, and they're doing it, so that's something to look forward to.
I hope it's good. I'm wary of connecting, I'm done with that. I'm done with the Skywalker series. I'm kind of like, you know what? I would rather just branch out away from... This is
Skywalker adjacent. Just think of it that way. They're not going to be showing young Luke or anything.
As I said, what I like about The Mandalorian so far is that so far there's been 0 connections. Yes. That might change, and I'm not...
second season they might bring in other characters.
I'm hoping that they don't. But.
Right. But anyway, yeah, Obi-Wan's definitely a favorite. Darth Maul, such a great design, such a great just ambiance that character gave
Never
up.
got it.
I like Darth Maul a lot.
I think
really.
no, I think he's cool, but like there was no. There's nothing there. They killed him. Now maybe
they killed him before. Now
maybe
exactly.
Clone Wars will fix this. Now you're looking at it through Clone Wars.
Through the Clone Wars series, right?
What I got in Phantom Menace, it was just
it wasn't enough.
Oh, this guy's awesome. Oh well, bye.
I guess not.
I guess not. Right. Lost his first major fight.
Yeah, but he did really blossom in the Clone Wars series. Sam Witwer voices him, and he voiced him. Even though Ray Park played him on screen in Solo, the voice was actually Sam Witwer who voices him in the Clone Wars. There's a lot of really great depth to that character that was unexplored in the movies, unfortunately. But in the series, I can't recommend it enough to go ahead and take a look at that. Palpatine is entertaining just from an entertainment perspective. I mean, just seeing him deliver those lines, especially in Revenge of the Sith, is just... It's hilarious and kind of captivating, and you can't take your eyes off him, no matter what. So
there's like a picture. It's like one of those promotional stills where he's just staring at the camera, and he's in his like Chancellor outfit, so he's not full Emperor yet, not with the makeup, and he's just smiling, just like this sly little evil grin, and it's like a Grinch smile where like just comes up, and I'm just like, that to me just sums up his performance. Yeah. It's like, I know I'm evil, you don't.
Right. Yes. Exactly. There's that scene when he's talking to Anakin and basically reveals who he is and everything.
Not from a Jedi.
Right. That's the scene before. That's a great scene. But when he's actually like revealing that he's the Sith and everything, and he almost looked directly into the camera. Almost looks exactly into the lens.
It worked because
when he smiles and goes like, save
really,
your wife from certain death.
It somehow worked.
Yeah, no,
because it's almost like he's looking directly into Anakin's eyes,
right?
But you get that feeling like you're Anakin
he's
now.
Creepy.
And he's just No, he's got
like
this
a possessed
demon like quality. Yeah,
right. And later when he goes more over the top and he goes, no, it's like he's possessed. It's like we're watching The Exorcist or something. I know, but it is like entertaining. You can't, like I said, you can't take your eyes off.
It is entertaining.
Right. No, I know. Return of the Jedi.
Green friend.
I know. He brings his arm down.
And I do. His one performance that I love as the Emperor is at the very end when he reveals, like, Padme is dead, and it's like, no. And as it pulls back, he's got this smile, but it's this nervous smile, like, eh. And I love it because I swear to God, what I think he might have been going for was like, is he gonna buy it? Is he? Is he? Yes, he did. Yes, it's this very nervous, like, waiting for his actually, like, we're good.
Yeah. What is his line there? It says, "It seems in your anger you killed." Yeah, he does kind of look around before he delivers that last line, which is hilarious. If I had to go with one favorite, though, and I have to mention Captain Rex, the clone trooper from the Clone Wars, which is a great, great character, and Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan learner, is great, and she really gives him a lot of depth. And
I'll have to watch the show.
Yeah, you gotta check him out.
I will give one character some credit, only briefly. I do actually really like Padme in disguise in the first part of Phantom Menace.
Oh, okay.
She's got some scenes. The dialogue's terrible, but she's trying, and she's got some scenes with Anakin where I'm like, I feel like these two are just kind of like big sister, little brother thing. Yeah. And I'm like, it really just does kind of work, where I'm like, and I'm saying that unironically. Where it's like, yeah, and that's what kills me. Is like, it would have been an interesting relationship to explore as that like evolves, but of course in Lucas's hands it was terrible. But I actually like her as the disguise, the Prince and the Pauper kind of deal.
Right, the maiden or whatever.
I do hate her in that fucking costume. Like, we'll not discuss this in a committee.
That's how he wanted her to deliver the lines. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But anyway, I would say overall, if we're taking into account the stuff in the Clone Wars series and the prequels in general, I'd still go with Obi-Wan. There's a lot of really fun stuff that they go into with him in the series.
I'd still go with Palpatine.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, Palpatine's great in the series too. I think you'd like him a lot. Also, Tim Curry voices him for a couple episodes. So.
Oh, awesome. I love me some Tim Curry.
Yeah, and that's an interesting take on it. So yeah, let us know what your guys' favorite prequel character is in the comments 100% for sure.
If someone says Jar Jar, audience. Be kind.
You know what to do.
Some dog whistle shit going on here.
So that's wrapping up our Star Wars fanscriptions. This is probably the last one we're going to do for a long time. We've done 3 of them now, so we're going to be definitely going into other areas.
I'm Star Wars out.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to take a little break on that. Next month, we're going to be sticking to our 2 per month program that we got set up here. So you're going to be doing probably an Indiana Jones editorial. Talking about the viewing order and things like that, right?
Yeah, how if you watch it in chronological order, including putting the flashback in Last Crusade first.
Right. So you're stopping movies and going back to the other ones. Yeah.
You can actually, this is based on a blog I read, and they brought up some good points. Like, you could actually create a kind of character arc for Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. And I'd like, so it's based on this blog that I had read, so I'll take some observations from that, but also some of my own observations. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking hard about it. I'm like, yeah, this is interesting. Like, Indy does have it. It's not the most in-depth thing, but there is like a character arc, and he's not just this kind of just like mindless character. Like, oh, it's just for like you can trace like how he kind of evolves.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing like your thoughts on that and how I would watch it when I would.
It'd be another interesting experiment how to make it one movie.
Yeah, 100%. That would be really fun. And then I'll be doing our main episode, which will be on Mulan. Not sure what I'm doing on Mulan yet, but it will be a full regular fanscription episode on Mulan. And then we'll be back here with the.
Well, so we're gonna make a man out of you.
Yeah, a long time coming, buddy.
Dishonor on your cow.
We'll be back here next month with another fanscription podcast to talk about both of those subjects. So make sure you tune in for that. So for Walter Panasiak and. What's your name again? Rob. Yeah, Rob Walker. We'll talk to you guys next month. Thanks for watching. Bye.
And may the Schwartz be with you.
Again. The Jedi are taking over.